You think you know the woman you've been with for 10, maybe 20 years, but then, seemingly overnight, she changes. She starts acting restless, distant, almost like a stranger under your own roof. Some men describe it as watching their wives or partners go crazy. And here's the harsh truth. It happens most often after women cross 40. But why? And more importantly, how does this hidden storm destroy families that once looked unbreakable? Stay with me, because in the next few minutes you're going to see the exact signs, the psychology behind them, and what it means for you as a man. Now, let's set the stage. What we're really talking about is a psychological and emotional transformation that happens to many women after they hit their 40s. Society likes to laugh it off and call it a midlife crisis. But to the families going through it, it's anything but a joke. It's confusion, heartbreak, and sometimes the very unraveling of marriages and homes. Here's the uncomfortable truth. After 40, many women face a tidal wave of questions about their lives, their choices, and their futures. And this is where the word crazy really comes into play. Not because women literally lose their minds, but because their behavior suddenly stops making sense to the people around them. To a husband, it looks irrational. To children, it feels like betrayal. To friends, it feels like drama. But for her, it's an inner war. The first piece of this puzzle is biology. Around this age, women experience hormonal changes that affect mood, energy, and even their sense of identity. Estrogen levels start to shift, and with that comes a roller coaster of emotions. Things that once felt stable, like her marriage, her job, or even her role as a mother, can suddenly feel empty or unfulfilling. Imagine standing in the middle of a house you've lived in for decades, and one morning you wake up and the walls feel like a prison. That's what many women describe. Now, biology is only one layer. The second is psychological reflection. By the time a woman hits 40, she has decades of life behind her. She's seen her youth fade, she's watched her kids grow, and often, she's settled into routines. And for some, that realization brings peace. But for others, it sparks a terrifying thought. Is this all there is? This question, left unanswered, leads to decisions that can break entire families. Let me paint a picture. A man wrote about his experience after 20 years of marriage. His wife, a dedicated mother and loyal partner, suddenly started talking about her lost dreams. She began reconnecting with old friends online, questioning whether she had missed out on life. Within months, she was spending less time at home, more time finding herself. And eventually, she walked away from her marriage. To him, it looked like madness. To her, it felt like survival. This brings us to the third piece: social pressure. Women over 40 live in a culture that glorifies youth. Magazines, social media, TV, all of it sends the same message. If you're not young, desirable, and free-spirited, you're irrelevant. This is why you see women at 42 suddenly trying to dress like they're 22, chasing adventures that look completely out of character, or even engaging in reckless behavior. They're not doing it because they hate their families. They're doing it because they fear disappearing. But here's where it gets dangerous for relationships. When a woman feels this pressure combined with biology and reflection, she often lashes out at the people closest to her. Suddenly, her husband becomes a symbol of everything she feels she's lost. She may accuse him of holding her back, even if he's done nothing but support her. She may resent her children for needing her when she desperately wants independence. These shifts don't just hurt, they can rip families apart. Now, before we go further, let's be very clear. Not every woman over 40 experiences this in the same way. Some navigate it gracefully, finding fulfillment in new hobbies, careers, or personal growth. But for those who don't, the fallout can be catastrophic. So, what does this mean for you as a man watching this video? It means you need to understand the silent storm before it sweeps your family away. Because once you recognize the patterns, you can respond, not with anger or fear, but with clarity. Here's a breakdown of the common patterns you'll see. First, you'll notice restlessness. She might suddenly complain about things she never mentioned before. Her job, the house, the routines. It's like everything feels boring or suffocating. To you, it might sound irrational, but to her, it feels like suffocation. Second, you'll see nostalgia. Women over 40 often start looking back at their 20s with longing. They may dig out old photos, talk about their wild years, or reconnect with past friends or exes. This isn't just reminiscing. It's her way of checking if she missed out on something better. Third, there's often a need for independence. She might start saying things like, "I need space," or "I need to find myself." At first, it sounds harmless, but if left unchecked, it can spiral into complete withdrawal from the family. Now, let's stop here and ask, why do these steps so often lead to families breaking apart? The answer is simple. Most men don't see it coming. By the time they realize something's wrong, their wives are already emotionally gone. And when a woman checks out emotionally, rebuilding that bond becomes nearly impossible. That's why understanding this psychology isn't just about pointing fingers. It's about protecting yourself, your family, and your future. Because here's the hardest truth of all. When women over 40 go through this transformation, they often make choices they later regret. But by then, the damage to marriages, to children, to families is done. Let me give you another example. A man once shared that after his wife turned 43, she started going out with friends more often. At first, he thought nothing of it. But soon, she was coming home late, avoiding family dinners and picking fights for no reason. Within a year, she filed for divorce. Later, she admitted she didn't even know what she was chasing. She just felt trapped and wanted freedom. But by then, the family was shattered. And that's why this conversation matters. If you're a man watching this, you need to see the storm before it hits. You need to recognize that what looks like craziness is actually a collision of biology, psychology, and social pressure. And if you don't, you risk being blindsided. Now, in the next part of this video, we're going to go even deeper. We'll explore the hidden triggers, the silent tests women put their families through, and how you can spot them before it's too late. Because trust me, once you understand these tests, you'll never look at a midlife crisis the same way again. Picture this. A man sits across from his wife of 22 years at the dinner table. The food is warm, the children are laughing in the background, but her eyes are somewhere else. Cold, distant, almost as if she's already left the marriage, even though her body is still there. Within months, she'll walk out and never look back. And here's the chilling part. If you pay close attention, there are silent tests women over 40 use to decide whether they'll stay or whether they'll burn the whole family structure to the ground. Today, we're going to pull back that curtain, and I promise you, once you see these tests, you'll never unsee them. This is where the psychology of women over 40 becomes less about biology and more about behavior. Because whether they realize it or not, many women in this stage of life begin testing their husbands, their children, and even their own identities. Think of it like stress testing a bridge. If the bridge feels weak, she walks away. If it feels strong, she might stay. The first silent test is emotional neglect. She pulls away emotionally. Not dramatically, not overnight, but gradually. She stops sharing details about her day, she stops laughing at your jokes, and she stops asking about your life. On the surface, it looks like she's just tired or stressed, but in reality, it's a deliberate withdrawal. She's testing whether you'll notice, whether you'll fight for her attention, or whether you'll just let her fade into the background. Most men fail this test because they assume it's just a phase. But to her, your silence is proof. The bond isn't strong enough to keep her. The second test is conflict escalation. She starts picking fights over small things, over big things, over things that don't even make sense. But here's the truth. She doesn't actually care about the dirty dishes or the late text reply. What she cares about is how you respond under pressure. Do you stay calm? Do you show leadership? Or do you shut down, making her feel even more alone? For many women over 40, these fights aren't about resolution, they're about evaluation. The third silent test is financial independence. If she suddenly becomes obsessed with her career, her income, or having her own money, understand this. She's testing whether she can survive without you. She may frame it as empowerment, and to an extent it is. But deeper down, it's often a preparation for separation. It's her way of proving to herself that if she leaves, she won't drown financially. The fourth test is sexual withdrawal. This one is brutal. A woman who once desired intimacy may suddenly show no interest. She may use excuses, stress, exhaustion, headaches, but the real motive is different. She's testing how long you'll tolerate rejection before you break. And here's the paradox. If you chase too hard, she feels suffocated. If you give up too easily, she feels unwanted. It's a no-win scenario for many men, unless they understand that the withdrawal isn't about sex at all. It's about power and validation. The fifth silent test is outside validation. Women over 40 often start seeking attention outside the marriage, not necessarily through cheating at first, but through social media, friendships, or social circles. She might post more revealing pictures, reconnect with old flames, or simply flirt with attention in ways that feel completely out of character. She's not just trying to feel attractive again, she's testing how much power she still has in the world beyond her marriage. If other men give her validation and her husband doesn't, the balance tips dangerously toward destruction. Now, why do these tests matter? Because every single one of them isn't just about her. It's about the family. When she pulls away emotionally, the children notice. When she escalates conflict, the household feels unstable. When she seeks independence, the marriage begins to feel unnecessary. These silent tests, if unchecked, snowball into resentment, detachment, and finally, the breaking of families. Let me share a story. A man named David once said his wife started spending more time at the gym after turning 41. At first, he encouraged her. But soon she was staying late after workouts, talking about new friends she had met, and constantly on her phone. When he confronted her, she accused him of being controlling. In reality, she was running a silent test. Do I still have the power to attract? Do I still matter outside this house? When David reacted with anger instead of calm strength, it confirmed what she feared, that the marriage couldn't survive her transformation. Within a year, she left. And this is the tragic cycle. Women test because they're searching for answers. Men fail the tests because they don't even realize they're happening. Families break because no one communicates the truth. But let's step back for a moment. Why are women over 40 so drawn to these tests? Why can't they just talk it out? The answer lies in fear. Fear of aging, fear of regret, fear of invisibility. These tests aren't about cruelty, they're about survival. To her, proving she can still command attention, independence, or desire is like proving she still exists. Here's the dark side, though. These survival strategies can destroy the very things that once gave her life meaning: her husband, her children, her home. In trying to feel alive again, she may kill the family she built. So what can a man do? Here's the uncomfortable advice. You can't control her tests. You can't stop her from feeling restless, from seeking validation, or from reflecting on her life, but you can control your response. If you crumble under pressure, she'll see weakness. If you cling in desperation, she'll feel trapped. The only path that works is strength without neediness, clarity without anger. In other words, embodying the calm, centered presence of a man who isn't shaken by storms. Because here's the twist. When women test, they're not always looking for a reason to leave. Sometimes, they're secretly hoping you'll give them a reason to stay. Think about that. The same woman who seems to be pushing you away may, deep down, be begging for reassurance that you're strong enough, stable enough, and present enough to hold the family together when she feels like falling apart. This is why so many men misinterpret the storm. They see it as rejection, when in fact, it's a desperate search for security. But only the men who recognize the pattern and refuse to be rattled stand a chance at keeping their families intact. Let me close this section with a haunting truth. A psychologist once said, "Women don't destroy families because they want to. They destroy them because they're searching for themselves. But the tragedy is that in finding themselves, they often lose everything else." So as we wrap up, remember this. The so-called craziness of women over 40 is not random. It's a series of silent tests, each one designed to reveal not just who she is, but who you are. And if you ignore them, if you fail them, you may wake up one day at an empty dinner table, wondering how a woman you thought you knew for decades became a stranger overnight. And in that moment, you'll realize the signs were there all along.